Good morning and happy Saturday from Awaken the World. My name is Garen, and this morning we're going to be talking about listening, the fine art of hearing. Now, this is a skill that very few have actually mastered or understand. Listening actually involves creating a space within us to hear what is beyond the words that are being spoken. You know what? And I've said this many times. It's amazing to me that we're able to communicate with each other effectively at all, and maybe that's part of the problem. There isn't a lot of effective communication going on. We don't listen to listen. We listen to respond. And what does that actually mean? Well, what it means is as the person's talking, you're not really hearing what they have to say. You're hearing your own voice in your head responding to it already as they're talking and formulating its response. And so because of this, we don't actually hear the other person. We hear what we think, and we hear what we are thinking about what they are talking about. But we don't actually hear them. Before we try to understand how the art of listening is actually applied, we have to have a reminder about words, and this is where a big part of the problem comes in. Words are guttural sounds that are lent meaning by the speaker and the receiver. If you take two people from two opposite ends of the planet speaking two totally different languages and they've never crossed paths, communication is tough, but it can be done. As a matter of fact, most relationships that were born out of two peoples meeting each other, they did not speak common languages. The communication was done beyond language in the way that we would think of it. Words are only labels, and we've talked about labels before, and if you're unfamiliar, you should take a look at the video on words and labels. It goes a long way to explaining how our labels actually become what we view as reality, and of course that's not reality. The other issue, of course, is that even if we are speaking the same language, our use of words and what those words mean to us will differ from person to person to person. And it can be as simple as a word as a tree. Well, if you're from somewhere way down south, a tree is not going to be a pine tree, for example. It's going to look like a different sort of tree. The language we use is only a roadmap to what we're trying to actually get out of ourselves and to another person, okay? We take experiences and then we try to freeze them into frozen little blocks and cut those into pieces, and we call those words, labels, and sentences. And we string those together and we tell that or speak that out or write that out to somebody else in the hopes that they will garner at least an idea of what we've experienced. Now, if you want to truly understand someone, you must learn to listen from a higher place. And the language we use can never actually quantify the experience. All it can do is give a pointer in the direction. And this is where listening really starts to happen beyond the words. Learning to hear beyond the words has to come from a place of inner stillness within you, and it has within it the ability for you to be able to generate empathy, because you're not listening to the words that are being spoken, you're listening to the feeling that the experience produced. The words are simply indicative of that feeling. True listening involves all of the physical senses. It is an activity that can only be fully engaged in from a place of inner stillness, okay? It's very important. When we truly listen, we are still inside. From this place of stillness are all our extra sensory perceptions, all our additional senses kick in that allow us to feel what's beyond the words, to understand what the person is really trying to say beyond the silence in the space. From this place of stillness, we are able to go beyond the language. We are able to go beyond the definition, beyond the labels, and see the heart of what they're really trying to communicate. And this is a very valuable skill. It is very much a truism that we tend to talk far too much for what we're truly trying to say. And the reason for that, of course, is ego. There's, in the case of my wife, and again, I'm going to use her because she makes a great example. It's the overwhelming to desire to explain oneself all the time. So, I'll come inside and I'll say, hey, hon, what are you doing right now? And she will go into an explanation of how she's done this and she's done that and she's working on this. And it's the explanation comes from the egoic place. It comes from a place of fear or guilt. The real answer to the question was at the time, well, I'm making cookies. So this is another issue that we face when we're talking with another person. There's a piece of us that is wondering and worrying about what the other person is thinking about what we say. And when we do that, we no longer communicate effectively ourselves, because what we've done instead is we've started to change what we're saying based on what we are trying to perceive the other person may be thinking. And we've had a lot of talks about the confusion that that brings on, because in reality, whenever you're speaking to one other person, there's four of you there. There's not two of you, there's four of you. There is your ego, and what your ego thinks it knows about what the other person is thinking. And there is your ego then again responding not from its own place of truth, but responding based on what it perceives the other person wants to hear. And now we double this, of course, and what you have is you have four different pieces of the personality trying to communicate. And again, it's a wonder that it happens at all. Whenever we're dealing with somebody who has an issue or has a perceived problem, it's important that we listen and see what's actually at the root of it. Because of course, the problems we see on the face, the things that we perceive as problems in the physical realm, are simply pointing us and guiding us to evolution, towards growth. They're helping show us where we have our own adjustments to make in our course in life. We're going to wrap this up for this morning. It's a snow day here. We're expecting 15 to 20 centimeters of snow in the middle of February. We're all hoping it was over, but I guess not. And then to add on top of that, it's supposed to go down to minus 22 centigrade tonight, which is about as cold as we've had this winter. So it's going to be an interesting day and night. So again, we're going to wrap this up. When it comes to listening, when it comes to hearing, we have to learn not to hear to respond, not to listen to respond to what we think, but instead to listen what is beyond the words. Again, the words are only pointers. The finger that points to the moon is not the moon. Much love and namaste, and we'll talk again soon. This is Garen signing off.